Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the And Whatnot podcast. How are you doing today, Adam?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I am pretty good. Just came back from my Chicago road trip, so I am a little tired and I just ate dinner like 5 seconds ago, so I'm also a little full. So I'm going to try to use my best presentation voice and stay alert and focused for our podcast.
All right. Speaking of Chicago, how was the trip?
It was really good. So I think the appropriate subtitle for Sonia's trip to Chicago is America is friggin' weird. Because, like in a horror movie and everything, everything's just a little off. You're like, okay, did I put that over there or did something move it over there? Everything's just a little out of place. That's how America feels to me. It's like it's so close to being Canada, but so not Canada.
Yeah. Do you think it was because like you're kind of used to Toronto, like big city stuff, so you went to Chicago, and I know previously you'd been to what was it, Tucson, and
Yeah.
I'd say Tucson's very different from Chicago. So do you feel like it's kind of like Chicago is just like that big city feel, so you're kind of used to it, but it's a little different compared to Tucson when it was like completely different?
Yeah, I think like Tucson felt like going to a completely different place because it's like a desert where Chicago is like Toronto and you can notice those like differences more. But even just things like their road signs and like the money. Oh my God, don't even get me started on the money. How do you tell what you're getting out of your wallet? You have to like look at them and read it. Whereas like here we're just like, oh, purple and like give it to them.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's the money is crazy too, but overall it wasn't so jarring. Like we had a good time.
Yeah, I know I'd seen a couple of like the pictures that you'd posted on Facebook. You went to like, what's it called, the Bean, and then you went to a Cubs game.
Yeah, it's not called the Bean. Its actual name is Cloud Gate.
I like the Bean better. It sounds better.
Yeah, I mean it is a giant bean, and you're in Bean Town is one of the like nicknames. So uh, I believe it. I mean, I'm no art expert, but I believe it's called Cloud Gate because you could actually like walk under it and it's all reflective and like you can see the sky from all the angles and things like that. If we're taking literal translation, other than that, that's about the extent of my art appreciation. Yeah, and then we went to the Cubs game and they won, which is good because you never want to go to a game and they lose.
They were playing the Brewers, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, I know like four baseball team names.
Or you just Googled who were they playing on Saturday or
Don't give
Sunday.
away my secrets.
I know, it's all of the internet.
Well, on I guess the game was Sunday, I think it was, and I
Yeah.
was talking to Mom about it, and she's like, "Oh, do you know who they were playing?" So I looked it up and told her the name, and so then I started quizzing her on like different sports teams' names.
Oh gosh.
She's really bad at it. She couldn't think of the New Jersey Devils, which is a hockey team,
Hockey, yeah.
and she was like, "Okay, what I." For some reason, the New Jersey Devils sounds familiar, but I don't think that's it. What is it? What is it? What is it? So I gave her a hint, which is it starts with D, and you've already said it. So she's like, Delaware. I'm like, really? The New
What?
Jersey Delawares? Like, that's a state. And she's like, well, what is it? It's the Devils. Oh, God.
She's special. She's not into the pop culture or the sports or anything.
No, no.
At least like I feel like I would know most of them or it, maybe I might get the sport wrong, but I would know the team that goes with the city kind of thing, but
Well, the way that I was doing it, I was going like league by league. So I started with
oh,
like
okay.
the NFL. So it was all just football teams. It was like, okay, what's the Dallas team? What's the this team? What's the that team? And she got more than I thought she would, but then she just came up with some like really stupid things. Like she said like the Flyers like 20 times for sports that isn't even hockey and like teams that isn't Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, she tries. You can only expect so much for someone who really doesn't know anything about sports.
Yeah.
But let's see, what else did we do on the trip? We went to the planetarium, They have a like natural history museum called the Field Museum. We went there. What else did we do? We walked around. It was supposed to rain and stuff all weekend, so I was kind of like bummed, like, oh, geez, like, you can't help but get the weather you get on a long weekend. So I was kind of worried that it would be bad, but
Hmm.
it rained a little bit on Friday when we got in, and then it cleared up. And then it rained probably till noon on Saturday, and then it was, pretty sunny and nice and everything. Sunday and Monday were great, so we really lucked out pretty good. I hear it rained here though.
Yeah. It rained on Saturday, I think it was, a little bit, or was it Sunday? I don't know. I can't remember. But it wasn't too bad. It was basically like most of the afternoon type deal. Not too much.
That's good.
Yeah. How did you find the prices and stuff?
See, everyone, like a bunch of people I know who go to the States, they go for shopping and they, buy all this stuff. But really, once you do the conversion, because I think it's about, you know, our dollar's like 75 cents to their dollar kind of thing. So you have to add about 25% onto what you see to get the Canadian price. By the time you do that, it's about the same. Like they often say sort of the general household things are cheaper, like shampoo and stuff like that. And we got makeup for my friend's mother-in-law. So we're getting the makeup and it's maybe a buck or two cheaper. Like it's not a lot. And I don't know. So to me, it's not worth it. I'm not a shopping person in general. So I mean, I barely go to shop down the street, let alone drive to another country to do it. But I don't think it's worth the gas or your time unless you're making a whole other like trip with it.
Yeah.
Um, I just bought a few things. I spent maybe $50, not including food. Like I just spent more money on food and like seeing things than I did anything else. So
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it would be different if our dollar wasn't so crap right now. So.
yeah, I mean, it was so nice when it was like 98 cents, so basically the same, which in that case it would be
Hmm.
because there is no conversion. It's just if it's $15 in Canada and $10 in America, obviously you can try to go buy it in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they, of course, have the rules of when you come back across the border, you have to have spent so much time there to get X number of dollars worth of purchases and stuff like that. So I mean, we didn't even come close to the limit between us, so it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good.
But yeah, the food was all really good. As I said, I spent all my money on food. Chicago pizza, oh my God, that was an amazing pizza. I have not had a pizza I was that impressed with in a long time.
Yeah, I saw that picture on Facebook as well. It's like 3 inches thick. Like I
Well,
understand what
the
deep
crust
dish pizza is.
it kind of curls up. It makes like a rim on the edge kind of thing. So the edge is taller. But yeah, it's pretty gigantic. I forget how many pieces I had, but I was like eyeing one. I was like, I could eat you, but I would explode. But it tastes so good. Like, so I did not eat the last slice of pizza.
Could have packed it up and brought it to the hotel room for a midnight snack.
Well, we did bring it back, and like our hotel room had a fridge, so we kept it in there, and we ended up bringing it home. So shh, don't tell any customs agents that we got some food across the border. My friend brought some mac and cheese that was left over from the lunch that we had right before we crossed over. So shh, shh. Don't tell anyone. But I think the husband had a slice last night for a midnight snack. It was half eaten. I think it has too many vegetables for him. It had a lot of green peppers, and so I think it probably turned him off it. So I haven't gotten his review on the pizza, but it also wouldn't be as good because it's like 3 days old.
Yeah, yeah. Well, pizza's one of those foods that kind of you can just eat whenever and it's fine.
Yeah, so I had the pizza. I had an Italian beef sandwich, which is basically like a roast beef sandwich with like some au jus and like mustard or whatever on it. So, but it was a good sandwich. And I had a Chicago style hot dog at the baseball game, so it was all good.
Oh,
I
that's
had
good.
I had the top three foods. And actually the drive wasn't bad. Like it's a 7-hour drive. On the way there, it felt faster than the way back. I think I was just so anxious to get home.
Hmm. Yeah.
We decided to leave a little earlier than we thought because we bought the pass where you could like see a bunch of the attractions for like one price and everything. And so we'd used it because like it's all like this or that and this or that. Like there's options, so it doesn't even let you do everything. So the Art Institute of Chicago was one of the ones we could have done, but we went to the planetarium instead. So we're like, oh, well, let's go see the art gallery on the day we leave. But like the thing that drove me crazy was a bunch of stuff opened later. Like the art gallery doesn't even open till 10:30 every day.
Hmm. Weird.
And everything closes at 5. Like all the attractions closed at 5 except like the viewing tower ones where you can do like night panoramas and stuff. But like the museums, the planetarium, everything closed at either 4 or 5 p.m. And this is like on a weekend. And like all most of the attractions were in kind of the business financial sort of district. So that's where we spent most of our time. And 5 o'clock, all the stores close. All the like a lot of the restaurants close. All the coffee shops, like the Starbucks and stuff were closed at 5 p.m.
That's weird.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's like something to do with Chicago. Like there's like a rule that they have to close. Because I don't know if you remember, but when we did like our family trip out east in Canada and we went to Prince Edward Island and Charlottetown is their capital city there. And it was like a Sunday and everything was closed. But it was like a rule because I don't know, they just never bothered to tell people that they can stay open.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it was really weird because it was like 5 o'clock. We're like, oh, let's go to the next museum. And then they're like, oh, no, we're closing up. I'm like, what? It
Yeah.
just seems so weird. Like, what are you supposed to do at night? And so, about, I would say maybe 50% of the restaurants stayed open. Um, if you cross over, like, they have the river going through it. If you cross over the river, it's more of like the bar restaurant kind of district. So, more stuff was open there. But yeah, where we were, like, everything closed. It was really weird. It was like a ghost town after like 6.
Yeah.
The Target was open, so we went to Target.
All right. I just looked it up, and like the ROM is only open until 6 on Saturdays. So.
But like, I mean, that's still earlier than I would think, but it's not 4 or 5. Like the planetarium closes at 5, I think, and like, it's just it boggles my mind.
Yeah, you'd think if anything on weekends they'd be open later because that's when people would be going, but whatever.
Yeah, and it's like it's a tourist spot, so you'd think maximize the tourists, and I don't know, but whatever. That's just how they do things, I suppose.
Well, it's good that you had a good trip. Do you think that you'd want to go back?
I mean, you can never see everything that you want to in the trip, no matter how well you plan it and stuff like that. But I'm not in a rush to go back. But if I do like have a conference or someone else is like, "Oh, I'm planning this trip. Do you want to come?" I'd say yes. But I'm the kind of person, once I've been somewhere, I'd rather go somewhere new instead. But it was a good time. I mean, I'd recommend going. And actually, like, if you were contrasting with Toronto, it was very clean there. Like, as I said, we're in the touristy district, but, you know, there's no garbage. And interestingly, very few garbage cans. So I guess people are actually just decent human beings and carry their garbage with them until they can throw it out. But you know, Toronto, if you walk through Toronto, it smells like hot garbage half the time.
Yeah.
Because like they have tons of garbage cans, but then they never get cleaned out. So it's so like smelly and gross. And I feel like Toronto has a lot of homeless people, and I don't even recall seeing one in Chicago. So I mean, it was very clean and like tourist friendly, and everyone was very nice and stuff. So A plus.
Well, don't forget with like the homelessness, like you're in like the fancy business district. Chances
Well, like,
are they're not
if you're
going to
gonna
be
walk
hanging
outside the
around
ROM in Toronto, you're probably gonna run into a homeless person, is what I'm saying.
there.
Like
Yeah,
even if you
probably.
compare as you know apples to apples as you can be, there's a lot more homeless people in Toronto that are like kind of in your face.
Yeah.
So before we talk about our movie of the week, which is Get Out, the 2017 suspense type horror movie, we I want to talk about original films versus sequels. So we had a discussion in a previous episode about, you know, what's the difference between a sequel, what's a series, Are sequels good? Are remakes good? That kind of thing. So here we have an actual original film. So it was written and directed by Jordan Peele, of Key and Peele fame, and it did amazing. I mean, most horror slash suspense movies are pretty low budget, even for Hollywood productions. Like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm just gonna guess because I don't have them. But so say it cost $10 million to make.
4.5.
Well, there we go. So it cost $4.5 million to make, and made like $200 million at the box office. So that's why a lot of the times you get a lot like this churning of horror movies, like your Paranormal Activities, because they're so cheap to make. But even if they don't do great, even if it had made $10 million, it would have doubled its budget. So, on a spreadsheet of the quarterly earnings, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So this has definitely like smashed its budget. I don't think you could do a sequel to this, but I think they're going to give Jordan Peele a few more chances to do maybe some original stories or something like that.
Yeah, I really like this. Like, Jordan Peele's known for comedy stuff. Like, I know him from Mad TV. I used to watch Mad TV a lot. And then him and Keegan-Michael Key got Key and Peele, obviously. So I've seen bits of that. And so I would have expected him to do more comedy. Like, I know they've got, like, the movie Keanu that they're both in and a few other things that he's done. But I would not have expected this from him. It seems kind of like out of left field, kind of. But it worked out really well. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed is that it was so original. Like, going into it, like, also kind of going on another topic, going in blind, you've got on topic list that we might get to. I didn't really know anything about the movie going into it, and I was kind of expecting it to just be like another slasher or something.
Yeah.
And it was not that at all, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I think this is, I've said before, I generally don't like to watch trailers. I don't want to hear about all the production and who's cast as who and, what kind of, issues they might have had and rewrites and reshoots and all that stuff. I would rather let the movie speak for itself. Like, I'm going to like the movie or I'm not. And in terms of even marketing, like, I don't watch trailers because I kind of know what I like. So I know what movies I'm going to see before you even start to advertise to me. And Get Out was one. I don't have Jordan Peele on Twitter. I don't like follow him or anything, but all the sort of celebrity people I do follow were like, you have to see this movie and you have to not let anyone talk to you about it. Like, go in, know nothing, and just let it happen. And so I really did try to avoid it. Like, I wanted to see this movie. I actually asked if you wanted to go in theaters, and you were like, oh, I don't know. Like,
No, it wasn't me. I said sure, but we weren't sure if your husband wanted to go, and then it turns out we had, like, one of you had to do something that weekend anyway, so we didn't end up doing it.
oh, okay, I am misremembering. But because I guess he's usually the horror movie buff, so I'm like, oh, you're gonna want to see this, and he's like, meh. And he also watched Key and Peele like religiously, so I don't know, but it just didn't hit a chord for him, so he didn't want to go. But I kept it in the back of my mind of like, I'm gonna watch it eventually, so I'm not gonna like spoil it for myself if I can help it. And he like Peele had even said like, don't tell anybody. Like, you had a good time, so don't tell anybody else any spoilers so that they can have a good time, sort of thing. And I do agree that it's hard because you say like, oh, I love original content, but then I also love every Marvel movie basically, where it's just this big factory making all these movies. So it's hard to almost root for both sides.
Yeah.
And I think the example that a lot of people tend to give is Pacific Rim by Guillermo del Toro. Try to enunciate that. And that is an original story, despite some maybe homage to some things.
Yeah.
But that was an original story that he wrote and directed, and maybe you can contrast that with something like Transformers, big robots fighting. And, Pacific Rim did okay, but not great. I really enjoyed it, so I don't know what everybody else like. It's robots fighting. Just let it happen. I don't know what you expected.
Yeah, yeah.
I would rather watch Pacific Rim over and over again than see another Transformers for gosh darn sure.
Yeah. Speaking of Transformers, I remember we went to see the first one in theaters, and we had to go pick up your one friend, and we were like a half hour late, and so we were in like the very front row, and so we're like 4 feet away from the screen, just looking up at it, and it was awful.
Oh, it was the worst movie going experience I think I've ever had.
Yeah.
A few of my friends are very much people who are late all the time, and he and the friend I went to Chicago with are one of them. Like, and I just can't stand it. I'm a very like, got everything, grabbed everything, let's just go.
Yeah.
And they're like, take their time and make sure they have everything. And oh, let me just check if I forgot. I'm like, oh, like let's just leave. So
Yeah. Well, our one aunt is like that as well. Like, we'd be like, oh, they're coming for, like, Easter dinner. Better tell them to be there, like, 2 hours earlier than they're actually supposed to be, and they'll arrive only 1 hour late.
yeah, yeah. I just can't get in that mindset. If I say I'm going to be there at 5, I do my very best to be there at 5, not leave my house at 5.
Yeah.
So with this one, I get the studio's perspective of original content is a gamble. If you have a movie like Transformers or like Marvel, where it's now you have an existing base and you can just make another one and it makes $1 billion and everybody's happy, why would you take the chance? And we talked about award shows quite a few episodes ago about like the Oscars and does anyone even pay attention, because they're not the movies that everyone goes to see. They are the ones that like people consider kind of art and have meaning and
Yeah.
things like that, but no one sees them. So it seems like studios will do stuff that they think will win awards, and they'll do stuff that they know they can sell to the masses. And if your movie doesn't fit in that, then it's like, oh, good luck.
Yeah.
And yeah, generally as a rule, like I like to go in blind on movies. I mean, I almost don't see like any benefit of knowing a spoiler. Like, why would you want to know the story, or why would you want to know a twist before you get to experience it? Like, isn't that the point of the movie? And so many trailers, especially for like comedies, they give away the best jokes. Or a drama, it might give away the twist because they have to put something that's tantalizing enough in it to make you want to go to it. But in doing so, they often give away the biggest selling point.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it in an episode before, but one of the best trailers that I've ever seen is the original trailer for Alien. Mm-hmm. It's super suspenseful, it draws you in, and it makes you want to actually see what happens. And I forget where I saw it. Well, it was obviously a YouTube video, but someone like cut together remake like their version of like the Aliens trailer, but like current day style.
Oh gosh.
And it's awful. You're like, I would never want to see that movie. But it's a great movie, but just the way the trailer is cut, it makes it look like really bad.
Yeah. And I get that the trailer people have a hard job. Like you have to sell it without giving everything away. So they often go with the selling over the keeping the secret strategy.
Yeah.
And you can't help it. And as I said, it's very, very rare that a trailer makes me want to go to something that I wasn't going to go to in the first place. So I almost don't get the point anymore of just keeping up the hype machine, because again, like I feel like most people would be like me and have already made up their minds about, if you get sort of a gist of what something might be about, of okay, it has this actor and this actress and they're supposed to fall in love. It's like, you're either going to go to it or you're not. And I don't know if a well-cut trailer would change my mind.
Yeah.
But like your point, a badly done trailer will be like, no, thank you. Like,
Yeah. Another thing I really dislike is that now studios have started putting out like 13 teaser trailers and like
ugh.
38 original trailers. I'm like, no, I don't care enough about a movie that I want to watch like a half hour worth of trailers for it. Like, if I wanted to see it, I'd see it. You giving out these little tidbits is not going to make me want to see it anymore. If anything,
No,
it's going to make
exactly.
me want to see it less because I am now seeing more of the movie.
I know the husband every once in a while, if he's bored, he'll just put on YouTube, and he has this like trailer channel that he follows. So he'll just like put on trailers, and they just loop. And I'm like, why are we watching this? We're basically watching commercials, and that's why we got rid of cable and only started watching things on the internet, so we wouldn't have to watch this anymore.
Yeah.
But he likes trailers, and again, I think he's already made up his mind, but he doesn't mind watching it. He'll take the risk of being spoiled.
Yeah. One thing that I've started noticing is that now that we're actually going to the theater and seeing movies, we're seeing like the same trailers over and over. I'm like, dear God, I hate these so much. Stop showing them. Show me new things. I've already seen these trailers.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, movies are in post-production for a year after they're filmed or more, so they have to keep you interested and keep you coming back. So when we're seeing movies, maybe every other week, at least once a month now, they're still trying to hype you up and like, oh, guess what's coming in, a year and a half. Like,
Yeah. Oh, or when like Marvel like announces their next lineup for the next 37 years. I'm like, I don't care what's coming out in 2028. I care about what's coming out in like 3 weeks. Tell me that, please.
mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. You can't like think that far ahead and start marking off your calendars.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we might as well get into the movie of today, which, as I said, is Get Out, written and directed by Jordan Peele. Is it your turn for the summary or mine?
I think we kind of just go with whoever doesn't screw it up.
All right.
And more often than not, it's you that does it, because I screw it up almost every single time.
I know. There's this one podcast I listen to, and the hosts, it's basically a book club. They read a chapter of a book every week, and so they have a 30-second recap, and one of them does it, then the other one does it, and they have like a vote of who did it better and stuff, because like to summarize a whole chapter in 30 seconds is really hard. And sometimes they do good, and sometimes it's just spectacularly horrible.
Oh, speaking of which, before we get into it, in the last episode, you told me to check out The Weekly Planet.
Yes.
And I've watched, listened to the first 2 episodes. I'm really liking it so far.
That's good.
Although I've got like 138 more to listen to.
Oh my gosh, I'm only on like 30 or something. I'm glad, because I never specified like start from the beginning, because I figured you'd be like me and do it that way. But I don't know who could just jump in at the current episode. Like,
Yeah.
you have to get all the in jokes and stuff.
Yeah, there's also another one that I started listening to recently. There's this YouTube channel that I watched called This Exists, and he
Okay.
kind of goes into like little things like that. He used to work for Aux, like the Canadian music channel, and
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
he started out kind of just doing like weird musical genres, like crazy, like hardcore, like Black Death Christian metal and stuff, like ridiculous
gosh.
stuff. And so in the podcast, he just kind of like learns about a thing and then like goes into it. Like the first episode, he just interviews this guy who developed like the most complex game, like video game ever type deal, and he's just talking to this guy for like a half hour about it. And then he has one talking to the Prince of Sealand. And,
Oh gosh, yeah, I've heard about Sealand.
and he did one that one of his friends is a reporter, lives out in like Alberta, and there was like the Canadian Juggalo weekend, and so he
Oh,
went to it,
Jesus.
and the guy was interested, so he just calls up his friend and be like, we're going to talk about this for 45 minutes. And it's stuff that you would think just sounds like really stupid or whatever, and then he like gets into it, and you're like, that actually is really interesting. In one, he interviewed the guy who invented whack-a-mole.
Oh gosh. All right, so I guess we will get on to talking about our movie, which is Get Out, written and directed, as we said, by Jordan Peele. And I guess I will start with the plot summary. I lost track of whose it is, so I'm just going to take it.
All right, and before we get into the summary, we should say that there are going to be spoilers ahead, and this movie, you really have to go in blind, so if you have not seen it yet, don't keep listening to this, go watch it, and then come back.
All right, so Get Out. Basically, we open the movie with this young black gentleman walking through a neighborhood and getting kidnapped. We can see him getting dragged into a car. And then we sort of jump cut to our current protagonist named Chris. And he is planning a weekend trip with his girlfriend Rose to go meet her parents. And so they've been dating, they say, about 4 months. So he's going to go and meet the family and all that kind of stuff. So they get to the parents' house, and they're this really well-to-do, white couple. I'm going to just say black and white people because that's basically the whole point of this movie is race relations. So this really well-to-do white couple, and they have this huge big house, and these two black people who are their housekeeper and their groundskeeper. And so Chris is meeting the parents, and everything's great. And the dad is like a neurosurgeon, and the wife is a psychotherapist, and they're all getting along and chatting, and it slowly becomes apparent that something isn't quite right. And the parents will just say the odd weird comment, usually about race, like, oh, how do you feel about being a black person in America? And, oh, I totally voted for Obama, isn't that cool? And they're bringing up the whole race thing more than he is. He's rather just like, treat me like a person kind of thing. And then the two sort of, the parallel is immediately drawn of servants of the two people that are hired to help in their house are acting really weird around him too, and staring and, not talking like normal people, like when you're just having a casual conversation, but they're very formal and use weird words, and they don't seem quite right, they almost seem robotic and stuff. So it turns out that Chris is a smoker, so the mom offers to hypnotize him so that he forgets about smoking, and through a series of events she ends up hypnotizing him, and we see him wake up the next day and not really realize what happened. But he doesn't want to smoke anymore, so hey, it worked. The parents throw this big garden party thing, so all these other rich white people come over, and there's one other black person there. So he goes up, he's like, hey man, how's it going? Slang and stuff. And the guy's like, well, hello, and is super formal and weird like the other people were being. And he ends up trying to take a picture and text his buddy about how weird this whole situation is, and then the other guy snaps and was like, get out, and attacks him. And so of course everyone, what's going on. And I'm just gonna jump ahead a little bit. I'm trying not to do all the minutia of the movie. It turns out that when the mom hypnotized Chris, she can basically control him now. She can sort of make the trigger noise, and he just passes out, but is awake. He's just paralyzed. So they sort of kidnap him and take him to the basement and tie him up. And it turns out what they've been doing is they've been kidnapping all these black people, and the dad, who's a neurosurgeon, takes out part of their brains and transplants in the brain of an old rich white person who pays him a bunch of money to do this. And then the black person is a host body, but still has a bit of their core personality left. And that's what happened with this guy at the garden party is, he snapped out of it, and for just a second he was himself again and was like, get out, before they do this to you. So Chris is, trapped, and one of these rich white people, paid a lot of money, and they had this little auction about who gets Chris's body. And so they're prepping for the surgery, and Chris escapes, and the whole family's in on it. So it's the dad, the brother, the mom, and his girlfriend, which she was portrayed as like very innocent throughout the whole thing of like, oh, what's happening? My parents are just weird and like, whatever. But then she's totally in on the whole thing too. And, kind of is the lure for the people of she either seems to be the date or the friend. And then they come over to her house and this all happens. So Chris makes his escape. And all the meanwhile, his buddy, who is a TSA agent, is trying to get help and trying to go to the police, and no one's really listened to him. They think he's crazy because, oh yeah, a bunch of rich white people are like brainwashing and like kidnapping everybody, haha. But his buddy shows up kind of at the last minute, and they're able to escape. And so Chris has, within the context of self-defense, has killed the dad and the brother, and I think the mom.
Yep.
And it turns out the two people who were working for them were actually the grandparents, so like the parents in these other people's bodies, and that's why they were acting all weird. So they try to stop him too, and they're the ones who came up with this whole scheme in the first place, and he kills both of them. Well, kind of not. Okay, so the grandpa who's in the gardener's body, he snaps out of it. So he's, the black person, he's himself again. And he has a gun, and he shoots the daughter, he shoots Rose, and they basically just leave her to die. And then he kills himself. And Chris gets away with his buddy, and hopefully goes on to live happily ever after.
One can only hope.
So that was a little, out of order in telling the story. But that's basically what happens, is they kidnap black people, take out their brains, put in rich white people's brains. And that's how we go.
Yep.
So overall, what did you think of the movie? Because we watched it separately. We watched it like at home with perfectly legal copies.
Yes. Mine just happened to have Japanese subtitles, but that's beside the point. I really liked it. Like I've said before, didn't go into it knowing anything about it. Pleasantly surprised that it wasn't anything like I thought it would be. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, because the only thing I'd heard about it, obviously, before I went in, is that it's kind of about race relations and things like that. So, that's kind of all I knew. And, that's not a secret. Like, you can be in it for watching it for 5 minutes and figure that out. And again, I didn't know where it was going. And it definitely ended up in a different place than I thought. I'm trying to think because I was thinking like, okay, this hypnosis thing, they're really leaning on that at the beginning. And, it is a movie. You have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. Like, to me, I actually know people who've been like cured from smoking by hypnosis, but it seems a little weird to me. So I was like, okay, this is what we're going with. But, so is eventually transplanting people's brains and stuff. So I was like, okay, well, all actual logic is out the window. It's just used to tell a story. So
yeah,
and I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to think of what I originally thought was going to happen. I thought the hypnosis was a bit of a red herring, and they were going to do something else.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, and I think just because all the other characters were acting really weird, and that the girlfriend was like, yeah, I'm so sorry for my parents, they're idiots, like keep talking about how you're black, and I wish they'd just drop it, and she was acting normal, that it was surprising when she was in on it. Like, I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting it to either turn into like a slasher film, or it turns out they hunt black people. That's the two directions I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah, because I figured it wouldn't be like a full slasher. And yeah. I thought it was going to be something like, the most dangerous game kind of thing.
Yeah, especially when the brother started talking about, like, if you had training, you'd be a real powerhouse. You'd be a beast. I'm like, okay, are they going to hunt him?
Yeah, I thought that too. I'm like, do they have like a secret fighting ring and he has to like fight his way out or something?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's, and who would jump to brain transplants? But it's like, I had no idea where it was going to go.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely took a turn a lot of people wouldn't have been expecting.
Yeah. And although, as I said, it's a little unbelievable, I'm glad if it had been more predictable, even if it had been that they were hunting black people, like, it wouldn't have been as impactful because if you can guess it, it's like, oh, well, it's like that other thing, like, that's kind of been done before a little differently and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I thought it was done really well, even for being a little ridiculous, but that's fine. And it was funny. Um, I was watching it with the husband, and he didn't clue until they basically explicitly said that the gardener and the housekeeper were the grandparents. And I'm like, you didn't figure that out? Because there was a line in it of, oh yeah, like when my parents were alive, we hired them to help around the house, and when they weren't here anymore, we just couldn't bear to let them go or something. So they kind of established a connection with the grandparents early. So once they sort of revealed that they're taking people's bodies and stuff, I was like, oh, they're the grandparents. So so I clued in, but he didn't even right to the end of who they were. So
Yeah. Um, Another thing I liked about it is that it had a really good balance of like the humorous bits to like the suspenseful bits to it. Like the Chris's best friend's named Rod, who's the TSA agent, and he's obviously the comic relief in it. And so I feel they had a very good balance of it. Like it could have been a lot worse. Like it could have been having too much Rod in it, but I think it worked out really well.
and I think it really shows what a good writer Jordan Peele is, because
Yeah.
watching Key and Peele, it was a lot of that, like, sort of stereotypical kind of like sassy black characters, and that's what Rod really was, of like, hey man, hey my N word, like how's it going, and like all that kind of stuff. Whereas Chris is like, not that at all. He's just talks normally, and part of the whole thing of what makes the people who've been taken over creepy is how weird they talk and how they are trying to hide who they are, and things like that, that it really uses like how the characters behave and like what's expected of a black person, how someone should talk, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I liked Rod, and originally I was like, okay, we're gonna have this guy that's in every movie, the funny black dude and all that stuff. But I really I liked him. I mean, you can't not like the comic relief most times.
Yeah. Especially the bit when he goes to like the police station and is trying to explain it to people, and he's like, they're being turned into sex slaves, and she's just like, hold on, let me go grab my partners.
And then they just come in and laugh at him.
Yeah.
And you think like, maybe if he wasn't playing that sort of stereotypical role, if he was just explaining it of like, my friend is missing, this is his last known whereabouts, I can't get a hold of him, like, can you help or something, like, if he was more like Chris and kind of normal about it, like, would he have gotten the help that he needed? But then we wouldn't have the epic of like, at the end, whether, Chris and Rose are like fighting in the street, and it looks like a cop pulled up, and here's this, black guy attacking this innocent white girl, and you expect Chris to be like arrested, and out pops his buddy and everything's fine. Like that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, something that, in the moment, like as I was watching it, that was my thought of like, oh my gosh, like he's gonna get arrested.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing.
And then it pops out his buddy. Like if you thought for 2 seconds, like obviously he would have access to a kind of cop car being working at the TSA.
Yeah.
But you're just so focused on, the point the movie's trying to make about how we perceive like black people, and especially like relating to crime and, black on white crime, that everyone immediately goes to like, oh my God, he's going to get blamed for all this.
Yeah.
Like they're going to pin it on him. And I looked it up. Apparently that was an alternate ending, was an actual cop would have pulled up and arrested him, and he would have gone to jail for their murders.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they didn't go that way. it would have, it would have made a point, obviously, and I don't think the movie would have suffered for it, but I am glad that it kind of had a happy ending, and the bad people get what they deserve and the good person gets freedom.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the casting?
I really like the casting. I like Bradley Whitford, who played the father.
I love him in everything.
Yeah, I'm currently rewatching The West Wing, and like I said, I didn't know anything about this going in, and I was like, oh, it's Bradley Whitford. Oh, he's a crazy murderous psychopath. Okay.
Well, I mean, I most know him from Cabin in the Woods, my other favorite, like, non-horror movie.
Yeah.
And I thought he was amazing in that. Like, I love that movie. The husband gets all mad because I make him watch it every Halloween. He's like, why do you have to watch this again? I'm like, I only watch it once a year. Like, but because I don't like actual, like, slasher, gross horror movies. I'd rather have one that's, like, a little scary and a little funny. So,
Yeah.
so I know him primarily from that, but he was great in this.
Yeah.
I liked Allison Jones, who plays Rose.
Allison Williams.
Oh, sorry, Allison Williams. I don't know where I got Jones from. I'm having a moment.
The guy who plays the brother's last name's Jones.
Oh, I think I was just reading them, yeah.
Yeah.
But the brother was so weird in it.
Oh, yeah, he's, like, really creepy. I'm like,
I get that that's the point, but, like, he was weird.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna be the one that was just gonna murder everybody, or, like, start hunting them.
I could
was
see how you would think, like, he would murder Chris or something.
He seems like the kind of guy. Especially because, like, during dinner, he was going on about, like, oh, with your physical characteristics, you could be a real beast. Let's fight. I'm like, okay, he's gonna do something weird. That's the guy you need to watch out for.
And I mean, he kind of did end up doing something weird. He was like the assistant to the weirdness. And,
Yes.
they made a comment about how he's going to medical school. And, it was the grandfather who came up with this whole scheme. And then now they're just continuing it down the generations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, the lead, I'm going to butcher this, I apologize, but Daniel Kaluuya, I don't know. I thought he was great. And, I never watched a trailer. The only sort of promotional image I ever saw was that shot of him, like, crying.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is I don't even know what to expect. And he was great. And I realized after I looked up what other things he's been in. So he was in Sicario, which we also reviewed a little while ago.
Yep, I didn't realize that until I was looking at the show notes and saw it there and was like, huh, oh yeah, that was that guy, wasn't it?
And he was in Black Mirror. So I watched season 3 of Black Mirror and, like, kind of started watching season 1. I'm not super into it. I feel like Black Mirror is really heavy-handed with their metaphors. But he was in what a lot of people consider to be one of the better episodes. It's called 1 Million Merits. So he's sort of the main guy in that. And he's going to be in the new Black Panther movie.
Yeah, I knew that, but I just didn't realize it was the same guy in Sicario. So when I looked it up, I was like, oh, it is him.
Yeah, so, and I love seeing Stephen Root and everything. So Stephen Root plays the guy who, like, buys Chris. And so that's really funny. I like him.
Yeah, I used to watch, what was it? What was that show? News Radio.
News Radio.
Yeah, I used to watch News Radio a lot, and he was in that. I really liked him, so.
And he was in Dodgeball, the Dodgeball movie.
Yeah. He's been in a lot of things, but I know him most from News Radio, because I watch that all the time.
No, and Catherine Keener plays the mom, and I don't think she was miscast. I think she did a great job, but, like, the only other thing I really remember her in is The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which was, like, 10 years ago, like a long time ago. So it was just like, she was so nice and sweet and, like, whatever, and she was the love interest in that, and now she's like a psychopath. Like, it was just really, that was the only one I was like, whoa, it was jarring to me.
Yeah, I haven't really seen her in much, but I'm not really a fan of her. I don't know why, I'm just not really a fan, but...
Like, you thought someone, like, more threatening looking should do it, or, like...
I just don't like her as an actress. I'm like, she did fine in the role, it's just, I'm not really a fan of her.
That's fair. I think it's comparing, like, the brother was obviously, like, super creepy and meant to be super creepy, so he nailed it. And, like, as we said, we love Bradley Whitford, and I've seen him in enough stuff that you sort of look at him as a person rather than like the character he's playing, but it didn't take away too much from it. But I agree, like for no reason in particular, I feel like Catherine Keener is like the weakest of them, but by no means is she bad, to me
Yeah.
anyway. And obviously, I feel like this movie would have been much, much worse off if I had known anything about it going in.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And really, like, how do you describe it to someone without spoiling it? Besides just say, go see it, trust me. Or, it's like you can't even tell anyone the start of what happens.
Yeah, I know. Like, I was trying to, like, give a brief description of it to Mom earlier today, and she's like, oh, yeah, what's it about? I'm like, a guy goes to visit his girlfriend's parents for the first time, and she's just like, anything else? I'm like, you'd have to see it.
And some bad stuff goes down.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what stuff because you should just watch the stuff. I was actually hoping you'd watch it with Mom because I even texted to you like we're watching this movie and it's not like gory and whatever. Like Mom could watch it with you, so I was almost hoping she did.
Yeah. No, I ended up watching it myself.
All right. So what would we change about the movie or would we do anything differently?
I don't think you could really change anything about it without disturbing the atmosphere it builds up. Like, one thing that I really... You're supposed to dislike it, but when she's, like, stirring the tea and it's making the scraping of the spoon on the teacup...
I feel like they could have, like, cut that in half. You could have had half.
They could have had that a lot less. Like, it was putting me on edge. I'm like, I'm understanding I'm not supposed to like this. Please stop doing it now.
Yeah, because it's like the one scene, it's for like 10 minutes. It feels like she's doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, we get it. Like, we get that she's using the like teaspoon hitting the cup as his like trigger noise. Like, we're not dumb. We get it.
Yeah, especially when like 30 seconds before she's like, oh, we don't use the pocket watch dangling in front of you, but sometimes we do use focuses, and so the sound is what he's supposed to be focusing on. I'm like, that is an awful sound. Please stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would change. I would make that a little bit less long.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else I would change. There was like a few little nitpicks I had, but now I can't remember. Now that it's like, quite a few days after I actually watched the movie. So they weren't that important anymore.
Basically, half of your nitpicks aren't that important. It's just that they're recent and you can remember them.
No, I still remember all of my Guardians of the Galaxy nitpicks. I'm still upset. Or I guess like the only other thing I could say of, not that I would do it differently, but sort of what makes no sense is, just how weird the sort of grandparents act as their like, hired help and how much attention they draw to themselves being weird. Like, this is shown that, there's been at least 10 people that they've done this to. And you think after doing it that many times, you'd kind of figure out that you're weirding everybody out. Unless they just, like, don't care. But, like, you think they would just, like, act better as, like, their sort of characters at that point.
Well, at the same time, probably, like, only the outside people that are ever there would be ones that they're planning on killing and replacing the brains of. So they don't really need to know how to hide it very well, because the only people that would ever see them are their family or the other people who want to kill people and get their brains in them. So...
But it's like, it all hinges on how long these people stay, and that, the mom has a chance to hypnotize them. And, it makes me think, like, does Rose or whoever picks them as the mark, always pick smokers or always pick someone with, like, a reason to be hypnotized? Because it kind of seems like, she hypnotizes Chris basically against his will. And I assume other people would have been like, oh, yeah, totally, I want to quit smoking. And he was kind of like, yeah, I'll quit, but I'll do it on my own time. So I guess they had to, forcefully do it. But it just seems like, do they pick people who have a vice that would willingly do that?
Yeah, they don't really go into the selection process. And they could have, like, thrown a couple lines in about it, but I don't think it's really necessary.
No. And it's like, do they, we find out that all the rich white people are having this auction for you know, who gets the victim. But it seems like maybe in general they're sort of tailored to who ends up getting them. Like the reason that the guy picks Chris is he's this like great photographer artist, and the guy's the owner of an art gallery, but he's blind. So he wants Chris because he's like artistic, and you know he even says like, oh, you got the eye for stuff, but he wants his vision. So it's like it maybe it just happened that way. But the guy's like, oh yeah, I already know who you are when he meets him, and it's like, is that because Rose gave a briefing of like this is who's coming over, and they already have like preview information on them, or like how easily does it line up, and like would they just like take anybody? Like I imagine there's got to be some sort of scenario where Rose brings someone home and no one really wants them,
Yeah.
or they just don't care. Like
Well, like going back to the opening scene of the movie, it's just some random guy walking down the street that they grab.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't think there was a selection process for that guy. It was more opportunistic.
But if I don't recall exactly, but he's like, oh yeah, I was going to this party or something. So it's like I assume the party was the lure to get him to go somewhere. So it's like someone had to invite him to the party. So it's like someone had to select him for some reason. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. But since it doesn't go in, we can only speculate.
Exactly. That's what we do. And oh, I did remember a nitpick.
Oh,
So-
wonderful.
Oh, good. The whole, the reason Rod really gets involved and ends up sort of saving the day at the end is Chris snaps a picture of the other guy who was abducted, who's now like, brainwashed and whatever. Their guy's real name was Andre. And he texts Rod a picture, be like, oh man, this guy's acting super weird. Like, check this guy out. And Rod recognizes him as Andre, this guy who went missing. So it's kind of like, oh, the stereotype of all the black people know each other. Isn't that funny? So I thought it was kind of funny that, the one random other guy that gets abducted, they already know him.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty funny. And even like texting a picture in the first place. I guess he was kind of making fun of his clothes of like, look at what this guy's wearing. Like, who would even wear this? So it just seemed kind of funny that he would even text a picture to me in the first place. I wouldn't text a picture of like a random guy.
Yeah. All right, so what would you rate this one?
Oh, yeah, I guess we have to put numbers on this. I would probably say a 9. I mean, I was really surprised. I really enjoyed myself. I didn't guess where it was going. I thought the jokes, although like a little like stereotypical, but I mean, like you're allowed to make those jokes. So, yeah, 9. I was really impressed. I would definitely recommend it to people.
Oh, yeah,
if you
for
like
sure.
suspense movies that aren't horror gore movies, for sure.
Yeah, I'd probably be about the same, 8.5, 9. Pretty much everything that you said, I feel as well, like is really good. Going into it, not knowing anything is the key to this movie, which for anybody that's listening to this, hopefully you've already seen it, but it was definitely good. I don't know if I would watch it again. I don't know how well it would lend itself to multiple viewings, but I would definitely recommend it to people as well.
I think in terms of multiple viewings, I would watch it again with someone. I don't know if I would watch it like by myself or,
Yeah.
With the husband again. I'd rather watch it with someone who hadn't seen it before. I think that's all I have to say about it. I think it was really well done. I'm looking forward to the next movie that Jordan Peele does. I know you mentioned Keanu earlier. I did see that one. It was kind of like okay. It seemed like just a long version of one of their skits. So it was kind of like, I used a free movie pass for it, so I didn't feel too bad, but
Yeah.
it wasn't great to me. And I mean, I think I had a couple laughs, but, it was sort of mediocre at best to me anyway. And then this one's like really impressive. So like, if someone just gave him a chance or did something, like whatever happened to make this movie happen, give him some license again and see where he goes.
Yeah, whoever greenlit this one did a very good job in greenlighting it. Like, it's one of those things that, like, they didn't really have much faith in it because it was only a $5 million budget. So,
But like a lot of like the last one, we watched The Gift, and that was only like a $5 or $7 million budget too. Like all the suspense ones, because all you really need is an actor and a set. Like
yeah.
there's not a lot else to it.
Like, they probably could have oh, I have one nitpick. Like, it in the, like, final scene, like, he knocks over, like, a candle and lights a room on fire. I'm like, couldn't you have actually, like, lit something on fire for real? Or at least gotten better CGI fire? Like, the fire looked really bad. That's my nitpick for this episode. Better CGI fire, please.
That's where your budget goes. But yeah, the whole like the guy accidentally burns down the place he's trying to escape from. Yeah, I guess that's done before.
For all, like, 10 seconds the fire is on camera. Could have gotten better fire, but whatever.
Yeah. Ooh, and another alternative ending. In addition to Chris gets like arrested for the murders, there's one where Rod comes and finds him, and obviously I think the rest of the story must have changed a little bit as well. But Rod comes to find him, and he pulls up to the house and he runs in and he's like, "Chris, oh man, I've been looking for you. Like, let's get out of here." And Chris is like, "I don't know what you're talking about," or something. And so it turns out he was like brainwashed and stuff. So as I said, obviously a lot of stuff would have had to change in that one, but
Yeah.
I like the ending they went with.
Yeah. It was really good.
Yeah, the one if he had gotten arrested for it, like it already has enough of a message. It doesn't need to hammer it that hard home.
Yeah.
No one turn into Black Mirror now.
I've never actually seen Black Mirror. I've heard good things, but just never watched it.
It's good. Like, I mean, as I said, you don't have to be a genius to like get the message of each episode, and it's good. I mean, I wouldn't say go out of your way to watch it, but if you've got nothing to do and you have an hour, because each episode's like an hour, then you could do worse.
Yeah, I think I've got it in, like, my Netflix list, and I'll get to it eventually, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, well, I think we should probably wrap the episode up here. All right, so that has been episode 14 of the And Whatnot podcast. If you guys have any comments or feedbacks or movie suggestions or whatever else, you can send us a tweet at @_andwhatnot, or if you want, you could send us an email at andwhatnotpodcasting@gmail.com. Thanks for sitting through another episode and listening to us ramble, and we hope to see you in the next episode as well.
Yeah, we will see you next time.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.